There's also a dramatic opportunity for new business models. Some of this is dictated by the economics of digital information. A few trivial calculations. A few years ago, actually a few months ago, I purchased 1 terabyte of memory to use at home. It cost me about $1,000, and I mentioned this while I was in Budapest yesterday, and the person I mentioned it to looked at me and said, "Oh, too bad. I only paid $300 for my terabyte of memory." Then I got to thinking about how much it had cost me to buy 10 megabytes of disk storage in 1979. I spent $1,000 for a shoebox-size device that could hold a grand total of 10 megabytes of information. And at the time, I was very excited, because the alternative was 5¼ inch floppy disks that held about 100 kilobytes of information per disk. Now, I thought, gee, what would have happened if I had tried to buy a terabyte of storage in 1979? Well, when you do the math, it would have cost somewhere on the order of $100 million. I didn't have $100 million in 1979. I still don't. But if I had $100 million in 1979, I guarantee you my wife wouldn't let me spend it on a terabyte of disk storage, I'm sure. So the point here is that storage has gotten really cheap. Transmission has also gotten very cheap. Now, I remember the days when 300 bits per second was thought to be pretty acceptable. Now, 56 kilobits is what you get with a dial-up modem, and you can get tens of megabits to gigabit per second service from dedicated facilities. Now, what does this do? Well, for one thing, it changes your view about how to store and distribute information that can be digitized. So instead of storing information on DVDs and CDs and other kinds of physical media, you begin to think about putting a lot of it online. Instead of having 100 stores with physical facilities costing you money to store and reproduce on these hard media, you have one big store on the net, and you distribute the information electronically. All of a sudden, you have a business model that is dramatically different from the ones that might be competing with bricks and mortar. We're going to have to understand how to take advantage of that, and of course, Apple has done so with its iTunes, although I gather that the regulators in the European Union are now taking exception to some of the details. In any event, what was driving iTunes was in fact the economics of digital storage and digital distribution. Something else happens to us when we become connected in this wide area system and when the general public is part of the equation. When this was just an academic exercise, we didn't really have spam and viruses and worms and social abuse. And if we had misinformation, it was because someone was stupid, not because someone was deliberately putting bad information in the net. And we really didn't have fraud either. Now, of course, it's the general public. It's us that's on the net. And when it's the general public, you get everything that you expect from the general public, including all of these bad things. So we are going to have to work hard to mitigate the risks associated with all of us being connected, all of us being able to contribute information for good or ill, and that's a big challenge. I've already mentioned the end-to-end principle and the innovation at the edge. All I can underscore again is the importance of preserving that capability, because that is where new businesses come from. That is where new functional capabilities come from. And finally, I would observe that after creating an international, actually a non-national infrastructure, that we're also discovering that localization is important. That people like to interact with systems in local languages, that they like to have information in local languages, they like to do business in styles that are matching their cultural and ethnic expectations. And so Google, like many other companies, is finding it important to actually put developers in places around the world where the engineers speak local languages and have grown up in a culture which allows them to adapt the services to match. I've already talked a lot about mobiles, but I did want to make some observations that these devices, which we all carry somehow on our person, are not just telephones anymore. They're clearly programmable devices. People use short messaging, especially teenagers. You can program these things to make payments of various kinds. But it's a tough medium to work with. If you look at the display, it's about the size of a 1928 television set. The data rates that you can get with these vary from very spotty, tens of kilobits per second to sometimes as much as a megabit per second. And I'm fond of observing that the keyboard is suitable for people that are 3 inches tall. But nonetheless, we are all going to have to learn how to adapt our applications to work with these systems, because more people in the world are going to be introduced to the internet through mobiles first than they will be introduced to it with laptops and desktops. So we have to be prepared for that. The other thing that you can observe about having these programmable mobiles is that it makes you more sensitive to what's going on around you. You are carrying the mobile with you. So in some sense, it is rooted to where you are now. And if you're trying to find out how to get from where you are now to some place that you want to go, the mobile becomes a source of that information. So we're seeing a rapidly increasing value in geographically indexed information. Things that people know about what's going on in a given location, or what will go on there, or what has gone on there, can be monetized. And so people with knowledge about the association of information and geographic location are finding this to be an important potential business opportunity. Google has seen that happen with the Google Earth application. This is just the typical screenshot of what you would get when you turn that application on. I just wanted to make an observation about the business implications of this geographic tool. This is an overhead shot of the area where I live in Northern Virginia in the United States. This is an area that has a lot of business buildings, a lot of intellectual property or knowledge work is going on there. And Google does not actually know a lot about what's in these buildings. We don't have a big database of that. But the people that are using Google Earth actually know quite a bit about what's going on in their neighborhoods. So there is a Google Earth community button that you can click, or a box that you can check, that says, tell me what everyone else has contributed about this area. Now, I'm sure no one can see this, but what I've just done is put up a lot of little text lines that are associated with the various buildings. Those texts are the names of restaurants, the names of banks, the names of other businesses associated with the buildings, and when you click on those text lines, a box opens up to tell you what's going on. We didn't put that information into the system at Google. The users put that information into the system. We just provided a platform that allowed them to do that. More and more people are showing a real desire to share information that they have, which is why you see the Wikipedia growing at such a rapid pace. You're going to see an increasing amount of interest among the users of these systems to share what they know, and in some cases to monetize that. Example, someone in the state of Texas learned quite a bit about apartments in the area around Dallas, made a database, and then presented the information through one of our other applications, Google Maps. So if you did a little search to see, you were saying, looking for an apartment with a certain size that had certain amenities, maybe was in a certain school district. After the search was over, this particular user developed an image showing little icons scattered around in the area of Dallas, presented on the Google Maps screen, and when you clicked on the icons, it told you the details of each apartment.